Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Reiki Rays Global Healing Summit. My name is Yolanda, and I'm here today with Colleen Benelli. And Colleen is going to share with us how we can discover our next steps using Reiki journey techniques for change and renewal. So, Colleen, I want to thank you, first of all, for taking time to have this conversation today.
Oh, thanks, Yolanda. And thank you for the whole summit and all the people listening too.
Yeah, so thankful. Yeah, that Reiki Race puts this together for all of us. And before we get into the conversation, I know you've been here before in the summit, but let's just give everyone a bit of your background. So, Colleen is the founder of Reiki Lifestyle and teaches online Reiki courses for all levels of Yusui Holy Fire 3 World Peace Reiki classes, ICRT Animal Reiki, and Next Step Reiki, which is a 3-year advanced Reiki training course. She is a co-author of the ICRT Animal Reiki Training Course and Manual. Colleen is the executive director of program development for the ICRT, co-director of the ICRT Teacher Training Program, a senior licensed Reiki master teacher for the ICRT, and has been a contributing author for Reiki News Magazine since 2005. Colleen holds a doctoral degree in shamanism and has extensive shamanic training. You can join Colleen and her daughter, Robin Benelli, on the Reiki Lifestyle podcast, YouTube channel, and participate in their free weekly online distance Reiki share. Wow, you are a busy Reiki bee, aren't you?
Well, I just to qualify it, I've been doing this for about 25 years now.
Yeah.
So it does, I when I wrote that about the 2005, I've been writing articles since 2005, and it's like everything just sandwiched in of feeling like, oh, that's like 20 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, I remember, I guess, I don't even know, maybe 15 years ago now, I met you in a class. I had a class with you back then, and I remember seeing articles that you wrote in the Reiki magazines. Yeah, you've been at this for a while.
A little while.
So, speaking of that, if you could share with everyone about your story and what really inspired you to delve deeper into Reiki journey specifically, and could you just clarify a bit what you mean by journey for people that may be unfamiliar?
Well, boy, it's such a broad topic. So let me get into summary
Yeah.
of it. My original kind of deep dive into any kind of metaphysical or spiritual training was in shamanism. So that was in 1997. I started in my shamanic training, which was extensive training. So not just a few months,
Right.
like 12 years
Wow.
in training and even more in apprenticeship. And then 3 years into that training is when I received Reiki. And I received Reiki because my horse went lame. And this was my lifetime dream horse. He was only 5 years old. And I realized that it was a permanent lameness through all of the other medical treatments that we were trying. And so one day I asked him what happened. And he said that he showed me my hands on him, and he said that he went lame to deliver me to my power to heal.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I knew that it was Reiki. And I also discovered by procrastination that I actually had a disbelief in Reiki. And I was skeptical about it because I remember knowing enough about the attunements and thinking, oh, all somebody has to do is just do this over you. And now you have Reiki. And what I know now that I didn't know then was that I thought, and my whole life and belief system was that if I wanted to do anything, if I wanted anything, I had to work hard for it.
Mm.
And the other piece of it was that I did not know how to receive. And you receive with Reiki, it starts with the receiving.
Yes.
So I had an inherent resistance to it. And I procrastinated for about 8 months when a woman came into my place of business. I was a fiber artist at the time. And she said that she had a message for me from my horse, that she was a psychic. And I knew of her, but I didn't know her. And I had not had a conversation with her.
Yeah.
So she said, well, your horse told me to tell you that he's been telling you to do something and you haven't done it. And you're going to need what he's telling you to do because life is coming and
Wow.
you're going to need it. So that was enough to really make me realize that it was Reiki, take action. And I think I got my first Reiki attunements. This was in 2000, within like 2 weeks, as soon as I could get them.
Yeah.
And it was an instant knowing. And it was an instant, Reiki was an instant answer to what I had been seeking. I was in my 40s and what I was seeking. And of course, I didn't know fully then why, but I had that energy coursing through my body. And I remember because it was physical. And I remember thinking, well, if this is true, what else is real? Like,
Right.
what else is true? Really, I really like, I actually, through that attunement, I actually have Reiki. So the other thing that Reiki did when I received it initially was it really changed my empathy. And I could discern the Reiki energy helped me discern what was somebody else's and what was mine. And that was a big piece for me because my empathy had always been pretty problematic for me, feeling other people's pain. That they cry, I cry. And I never thought that I could be a practitioner. So, to bring this all around to how this came together with Reiki Journey techniques is my very early training with Reiki and with shamanism. They were always combined. There wasn't any way that I could do my shamanic work without Reiki energy. And then the Reiki energy, what I think now is it's so shamanic. They are so naturally complementary.
Mm-hmm.
But I really, as it, now moving forward to a lot of years, and when we started working with the Reiki Journey techniques and teaching them, more actively and really bringing an awareness to what they do for you, um, it's because I like the way the Reiki energy actually does the journey. I like the way the Reiki energy does the healing work. And so it's really just a matter of using the Reiki energy. And what a Reiki journey is a way of giving you access to your own higher consciousness. It gives you access through moving into a deeper meditative state, that it gives you greater access to yourself. So I feel like I'm a little bit talking circularly, so I want to kind of bring it around um, to what a Reiki journey is and why we do it and why it's valuable and
Yeah.
how we use Reiki to do it. Many people are familiar with a shamanic journey, and a shamanic journey, you access these states of consciousness, typically using a drum beat or a rattle or a sound that elevates your brain waves into this journey state. It activates your imagination, which is actually the gateway to your higher consciousness, how we get there.
Yeah.
And so we need methods to do this, and there's many types of methods that give us access to higher consciousness. So for me, because through all of my training, which was core shamanism and studying traditions of people all around the world, ancient healing traditions, and I discovered through it all that I like the way Reiki energy does the work. I like the way the journey works. And so when you think of how do you gain access to these spiritual realms of consciousness, spiritual realms, spiritual guides, higher consciousness, it could be a biofield for some people. It doesn't have to have the specific look of, a spiritual realm and spiritual guide, but that is how it resonates with me. And so what we're doing is actually using the Reiki energy for that access. And I'll say specifically the distance symbol. So the distance symbol is a bridge of light, and it goes beyond time and space. So if you think of what a journey is doing, typically we are journeying maybe to somewhere, or we're journeying deeper within. How do we get from this space to this space using Reiki energy?
Yeah.
So the distance symbol is the bridge of light, and it really can take you anywhere. So we know that when we use the distance symbol for healing across time, it can be in, lateral time. And it can be in the future, it can be in the past. What I use it for in a Reiki journey is to elevate, and I personally work with what we call the third heaven of consciousness, which is a level, it's an enlightened spiritual realm. But people could use the Reiki energy and the bridge of light to journey, say, in shamanic terms, you might think of it as lower world, middle world, upper world. You can use that bridge of light to access kind of anywhere, anytime,
Yeah.
in any space. When I do my Reiki journey techniques, I always go through the activation of the Reiki energy first. I can do that quickly, or I can do that slowly. My preference is to do it, give myself a little bit of time with it, doing self Reiki at the same time, and breathing in that Reiki energy, which then starts to elevate me to that bridge of light consciousness. It takes me in because Reiki entrains us to its energy. So now I have the bridge of light, and I like walking over it. And I always imagine that the bridge of light is filled with color, that as I'm walking across it, I'm going through the colors of the chakras and the colors from the earth and the colors from creation. And so they're filling the body as you're going across the bridge. And for me, the bridge is the river of life is flowing underneath the bridge, and it's coming down from sacred mountains, and it's living waters, and it has just this amazing, beautiful presentation. That is how my imagination sees it.
Yes.
That's how that works for me. And so I'm accessing that higher realm of consciousness. I'm very aware that it is my imagination. And one of the number one questions people ask is, am I making this up? Because we're using our imagination.
Yeah.
But our imagination is the doorway.
Right.
And it has been suppressed for so many of us, that Reiki energy. So now we go to some of the other symbols, and you can just call on all of Reiki. You don't have to use the symbols, but I wanted to identify them a little bit here. So if you think of your imagination and the mental emotional symbol, for instance, that symbol is going to give you a deeper connection to your imagination, your authentic intellect. And the other big one is your intuition. So, how does your particular intuition work as well? So, Anyway, I've been talking a long time. give you give you a chance to ask any questions.
Yeah, I mean, but it's so interesting what you're sharing. One, I will say, I always think of my imagination as the translator, even of my intuition. So I love that you share so people don't think that there's something wrong if intuition and or imagination comes into play. It's actually necessary, supportive, and part of the process. I love that you point that out for us. But I have a couple of questions come to mind with what you shared. So one, when you're talking about shamanic journeys and, if we're accessing the upper middle or lower worlds, these kinds of things, if someone maybe isn't as familiar with shamanism, what would be the access point or what might you think you're going to visit, so to speak, in a Reiki journey? Like, is it based on what we're going through? What's the difference between the two?
Well, you can really choose.
Okay.
So the difference between the two is that that there are kind of well-known mapped um, places that you travel to in a shamanic journey.
Mhm.
So the lower world, where there's, it's such a long-held practice of and common practice where people go to the lower world, which is an enlightened realm, by the way, power animals and more of the earth energies. Then the middle world is, where we are here on earth, and the upper world are the enlightened spiritual realms. And so in a Reiki journey, I can use the bridge of light to access any of those realms too. So in a
Okay.
shamanic journey, there's still always a portal point. There's still a method to get down. Like you might go through the roots of the tree, or you might sometimes people see themselves going up a stairway to get to the upper world. So in this case, we're using the bridge of light. And for myself, that's why I say I personally like to go into more upper world, enlightened realms, but that's also includes the spirit of the earth, the enlightened realms of the earth, the the creation source of the earth and of myself. So people can choose anywhere, and the next step classes that we teach, we work with, because another class we teach is called Explore the 12 Heavens of Consciousness. So a lot of what we do is specifically go into those realms. So take that bridge of light, walk over it, and intend, I'm going to be in the third heaven, which is an enlightened realm, or intend, now I'm going to lift to the fourth heaven. And the Reiki energy also does that with us. So, and for us. So it's actually for me a lot more effortless to gain access to those realms using the bridge of light, which is how I've been doing it for years now. At the same time, because what we know is that Reiki can be perceived from every belief system possible, a person could say, well, I'm going to use that bridge of light, and I'm going to journey to the higher frequencies in the biofields, or I'm going to journey and I'm going to be in the universe.
Mhm.
So it's a specific choice to where you want to go. The one thing that for me, I personally really like to do is go into the enlightened realms. And so I even say that in my intentions. I say that by activating Reiki. When you activate the Reiki symbols, because the energy is always coming from an enlightened source, it's automatically entraining you with that bridge of light to go into a an enlightened realm. And whether you are in the on the earth, whether you would use it in any of the other realms, it's still going to have that Reiki energy engaged and activated.
Yeah.
Now, I personally work with spirit guides too. Again, we know that in Reiki, every perception is equal. And so it can be perceived the energy can be perceived in so many different ways. I have years of experience of validation, I guess I would say, with spirit guides to know they exist. And whatever they are, I know I give them a particular belief system because I like that viewpoint.
Yeah.
But they could be something differently than, how I imagine them. But there is the ability to access a higher level of consciousness, both within ourselves and also in the world around us and the world beyond us. The other thing I like with Reiki journeys is that I'm often using them to go deeper into, like, to journey into myself, to get to my authentic truth, to get deeper into my soul's knowledge. And so when I'm doing that, I'm going on that bridge of light and I perceive it. And this is again in my imagination. And the way my particular intuition works is that I have a metaphorical vision. So it's like I see it like a movie, but it's metaphorical. So I don't think of it as exact. So anyway, I imagine that bridge of light. So now I've got the Reiki energy activated within myself. So whatever anybody is working with. And then that bridge of light with the distance symbol and going deeper. And I actually imagine or intend that I'm walking through those same colors and I'm moving from here I am sitting here in my personality. And now I'm going to go deeper and deeper and deeper and go all the way into my heart brain, my gut brain, my soul awareness. And then I can go look around there too.
Wow.
So a lot of it for me was learning. Well, the big one is learning how to get out of the way.
Yeah.
um, but the reason I started teaching this so much was that I noticed teaching Reiki, and again for 20 years, day one, Reiki 1 in the morning, people are already receiving intuitive insights, psychic impressions. They'll say, I saw this or I intuited, whatever their word for it is. I saw this during the Reiki session. What does that mean? Did I make that up? And because my training through all of my years with, my Reiki training, going through the licensed teacher training program, being mentored by William Rand and Laurel Gaia, and then all of my shamanic training and apprenticing with Jan Inglesmith, my teacher, for 8 years. I always journeyed with Reiki. And I thought, well, people need to learn the skills. They need to learn how do they actually get access to what they are experiencing or observing during a Reiki session so they have skill with it. Because to me, it's an important skill if you're going to practice Reiki that way.
Right.
If you are going to move into, sharing about impressions that you receive, things like that people needed to be skilled with it. And, it's what I've been doing always. In fact, with my teacher in shamanism, she had actually asked me to bring Reiki into, we had the Lightsong School of Shamanic Studies, and to actually bring Reiki into the school as an important tool in shamanic training. And so it's always been my emphasis. And so when I saw that people were having these impressions, but there really wasn't a lot of training, like you get your Reiki attunements, and now what?
Right.
How do you take it further?
Yeah. No,
And
I had the same experience. I know exactly what you mean. And so I have to ask you this, Colleen, because like you've painted a very clear picture for us. I think it's interesting, even the idea of that journey into different aspects of ourselves. But could you tell us a little bit about how Reiki journeys have actually supported you, or maybe even students and clients, towards making changes in their lives, or um, their transformation, or even help to clarify their direction in their practice?
absolutely, thank you. So, because a Reiki journey actually activates your higher consciousness, it activates it even outside of the journey, because it's actually training your brain
Mhm.
to go into those higher levels of thought, higher levels of consciousness in your daily life. To me, Reiki is my life management tool. And
Right.
so a Reiki journey technique is a specific tool in my tool bag. And one of the things that through the years of working with it, and it doesn't even take years, it's actually trained my brain to receive insight, to receive um, the solutions, to receive resourcefulness, to access my imagination, heighten my intuition. And so that it is useful in a functional, practical, everyday way and in life. And we've been talking about in our distance Reiki show, we've been talking about this month um, using Reiki for decision making, right? So during that discussion, we go into the Reiki journey to heal the places where maybe decisions are confused or limited or have past fears or anything that is uh, um, causing the person to um, uh, like not have self-trust about their decision making, for instance, just one aspect of it. And then the Reiki energy in the journey actually brings in for them the awareness of their skills, of their gifts, of their wisdom, their knowledge. And what a Reiki journey does is gives you a way to observe what that is. So the journey takes you into a level of awareness, of observation, and that observation can come through your intuition depending on your style. You don't have to be able to see. Not everybody's intuition works through seeing. Somebody might think their journey, or they might think their, or, hear it. It might be audible rather than visual. That's because of all the different styles of intuition. So it gives you the ability to observe. So, for instance, when you're in change, well, it's helpful to have clarity of mind with it. And a Reiki journey can bring to you that clarity. It can bring to you solutions, can bring to you resourcefulness in a way that helps you discover and hear yourself. Because that's the biggest thing, I think.
Right.
And so much of what Reiki is teaching us to do is how to hear ourselves, our own inner authority, our own inner truth. So we're moving, speaking of the age or the changes, collectively, we're moving out of the age of the outside authority into the age of the inner authority.
Right.
So for me, it's always, how do I get there? What are the tools that I have to get me to that inner truth and my inner authority? And it's, of course, been a lifelong journey of, of discovery and, moving out of the culturally created self from childhood in this lifetime, possibly past lives or ancestral histories. And so in the journey, what it does is helps you observe what that is. What did you just let go of? Where did that come from? Sometimes you observe that you don't need to know all that. You don't need to know the details. And so you're just letting go.
Yeah.
And, it's like what you observe is watching it go, because the other thing that I love, and one of the reasons I love working with Reiki for journeys, is that in observing what happens when we let go, the Reiki energy actually heals what we let go of.
Okay.
And so that's another aspect of really understanding and being able to observe how Reiki is doing the work. One of the reasons that I really love working with this energy is that piece exactly, because that's not true of all modalities and
Right.
practices. That what a person releases when we let go of cords or connectors or attachments or anything from any time in this life, other lives, ancestral histories, the energy of Reiki actually carries it into the light. It releases the burden of healing it from us, but it also does get healed. And we don't have to know what that is unless we want to know more about it. But then in the observation, the bigger thing that I've seen that happens in a Reiki journey is the way the Reiki energy brings in the empowerment for the person. It activates that power symbol, is that power of love at the core of creation, and it wakes it up inside. And you can observe that. You can know that that's happening. And when I say observe, again, you can think it, if that's how you observe, is through thinking.
Right.
Um, so you can observe that happening, and you can observe like the way that it'll show it to me, again, metaphorical, but the way the Reiki comes in is it actually goes into our cellular memory. And in those same culturally created self, what are our gifts, our talents, our skills, our abilities? What did we bring forward with us with our gifts and our abilities from other lifetimes?
Yeah.
What about the gifts of the ancestors? And you may even, in a journey, you may even meet the ancestors. We did an invocation before this, and the grandmothers for me have really been coming in. The last 2 days they've been just, they're like, here we are. We are here. We are really present right now. And so anyway, so the Reiki journey also does give you a greater, for me, it gave me a greater relationship with the spiritual beings, because when I'm crossing over that bridge of light and I'm going into enlightened realms, I'm always meeting enlightened spiritual beings.
Yeah.
So I know they are there. So, for instance, Kuan Yin or Jesus or the angels or some of my shamanic ones, Chakotka, the great bear of first creation, or as I say, the grandmothers. We can go to the hall of the ancestors and meet some of the ancestors. And as you said, for you, your imagination is a translator.
Translator. Mhm.
And so it's that same thing. And there's that next symbol of the mental emotional symbol and how that brings in that translation. And then the distance symbol is so heart to heart that it takes us and entrains us to that heart level of communication. And it does that on the earth too. We don't have to leave here and go somewhere else. We can do the same thing right here in our own world.
Well, what I love about this, Colleen, what you're sharing is I think it gives us a way of being very intentional in the observation, because I think what happens for a lot of us practitioners is we do start to get this heightened awareness. But if we don't understand it, sometimes we can just default to, I'm making this up. Or some people could just, I don't know, feel confused about what they become aware of. But with what you're sharing, it sounds like when you are working with your ability to be an observer in a very intentional way, it can support you in not just allowing yourself to see and understand within these different realms of consciousness, but actually work with that. So I wanted to ask you too, could you kind of break this down for us in a way? Like, I'm sure people listening are like, how, Colleen? How do we do this? Right. So could you talk about the specific techniques of the Reiki journey? But then also, could you paint a picture of like one of the realms for us? Like what? Yeah, thank you.
Sure. The first thing I want to make sure I say, um, which isn't exactly your question. When you're working with a Reiki journey, Reiki, the energy of Reiki is still always doing the work. And so your clarification of it being observing it is so important
Mm.
because the journey isn't what's making the Reiki do the work. The journey is our ability to observe how Reiki's doing the work and what it's doing. And so it's over the years, it's, just expanded my entire belief system.
Yeah,
Definitely didn't start out with this belief system. So it expanded it. But to get to the specifics of the technique, so I actually do let me say too that I wrote Robin, my daughter Robin, and I both wrote an article called Reiki Journey Techniques that's on our website,
okay.
ReikiLifestyle.com, and then another one called Reiki for Spiritual Research. Both of those kind of combined because that is to me what it does. It gives me access also to spiritual research, like the questions that I have. So getting to the specifics. So I will describe the realm that you asked about that I like to go to um, as I'm giving the specifics.
Okay.
So step one is to activate Reiki. And, I'm a believer that that can be done at any pace a person has the moment for. So sometimes I've trained enough with what I'm doing to be able to do Reiki on the fly and go right into the journey. So time spent isn't the purpose or the point, but I like to spend the time.
Yeah.
So just clarifying. Also, all of this can be done with whatever level of Reiki anybody has. And you can use the particular styles you already use, your perception of the symbols. I'm going to give you mine, but I want to open it to everyone to allow for their way to be their way
Yeah.
and validate your way. Okay, so with all of those caveats, so the way it works for me is that I activate Reiki. I like to do that verbally. And so I use an invocation where I am speaking the words. I have my hands on myself. I'll close my eyes and take some deep breaths and just invite the Reiki in. I like to be verbal with it. It keeps me focused. So I'll just say things like, I breathe in the light and the power of love, and I go through all of my symbols. I invite my spirit guides, and I have my space around me, filling my breath, the earth coming through, the heavens coming through, and also so recently has been the wisdom of the ancients
Right.
coming in on the four winds. So a lot with the spirit of the earth has really been coming through. So activating all of that. And then I intend, and let's say I'm going to go to the third heaven that I just mentioned. So I intend that the bridge of light is in front of me. And I do that through my imagination. And again, I might see the bridge, but you can also think the bridge. You can also intend the bridge is there. It doesn't have to have a particular way that it's showing up. So for me, I see the bridge. I see the colors of the bridge. The enlightened ones are on the bridge. I often hear the angels and the power of their song as I'm crossing over the bridge will just wash away some of those ways and worries of the world, and awaken my song that can be buried underneath those ways and worries of the world.
Yes.
So I imagine myself going over that bridge. And for me, I walk through the colors. As I'm walking through, the colors within me are strengthening, purifying, growing stronger. And I told you before that I imagine the river of life or the river of peace and the river of peace flowing underneath the bridge. And when I get to the other side, as I've walked through the final crown chakra color of violet, I'm now in that third heaven realm. So I intend that. And for me, it's an enlightened realm. All there is love there. And so I even think that I'm like, I've crossed over the bridge of light and I'm here in this extraordinary place that I call the third heaven. And all there is love here. And then I'll walk through a pathway, and anybody can use any of the images or, you know, locations they find in that realm. For me, I'm going to take the pathway along the river of life. The divine animal kingdom is there. The sky is blue. There's trees, flowers. I can hear the river and the song of the river. And I'll go to the river's edge. And that's where a lot of the releasing happens. So going to the river's edge, and the river, is pure and primordial water. So I'll cup my hands into the waters and take a long drink and let the waters come in and start to cleanse and clarify. But right there is where that Reiki light comes in, and it'll come in to those places where we have injuries, we have things that block us. So since we're talking about change and renewal, where are the changes, and what are the blocks to, or resistances or limitations or fears about the changes, and how can I let go of the things in my way that I may or may not even know about. They may even have come from an ancestral belief, or maybe it's an opinion I've picked up along the way, and somehow now it's blocking me and I can't see my changes clearly. So I would be there and I would actually use the journey and be at the river and ask the Reiki energy to come in and release what is blocking me, what my limitations are. So many words for what we're releasing.
Right.
And so asking it to release those cords and connectors and to lift the burden of healing it from me, for me. And so the Reiki energy, and again, observing it, the Reiki energy will take it um, to where it can be healed. And I don't have to do that. So the other thing that I always observe happening is as the things we're letting go of, the cords and connectors or attachments we're letting go of, are released, we're also receiving the empowerment of Reiki, and it's bringing us to our sovereignty, because it is our divine right to be whole, our divine right to be able to see ourselves, be ourselves, and to be sovereign.
Right.
So it's bringing in that sovereign energy. Now, other things could be happening in the journey. This is just, I'm giving you a baseline
Yeah.
template, because In the meantime, I may have spirit guides that come and engage with me, or that sound of the angels wash over me and clear the water dwellers in the river, the light sparkling on the waters, so other things can happen. So then typically what I will do is follow the path that goes along the river, and it can take us to so many places. And so I still find new places in this. The tree of life is there. In this case, for renewal, I would probably go to the field of possibilities. And what happens then is, as I walk into the field, and it could be anything, you guys, so this is just my imagination, but I walk into that field and find a place to just let the light come in, shine on me, and reveal those possibilities and reveal them from that level that I talked about earlier, by empowering those gifts, those abilities, that inner knowing, that soul's knowledge, the wisdom we have, and then the skills that we have. What are the practical, logical, realistic skills, and how do we bring it into our daily life?
Yeah.
Because renewal is about, well, I'm making the changes. Now, what is the renewal? What's the new beginnings? And collectively, we are there. Individually, we are there. Astrologically, we are there in this time of change and renewal.
Yeah.
So for me, then I'm in the field of possibilities. I also like to do automatic writing. So I might be in that field and just put my pen to paper and ask, okay, give me the possibilities. And then I might even take the time of like, well, what's real here? Because the other thing with Reiki is it's so practical, because it also includes discernment. It also includes, because it's life force and our life force, it's about us in our daily life. It's going to take us to, well, here's the reality. Here are the choices that you have to make. It can help you put those possibilities into priorities. Like, what's the next step? Just that one next step. So I might take this time. And so a journey like that for me could be, we could do it anywhere in 10 to 15 minutes, but a lot of times I'm in them for 35, 40, 45 minutes. And it's okay if your mind wanders. Like, you don't have to be hyper focused, because again, remember, Reiki's doing the work.
Right.
So it's still, regardless of what I'm observing, the intention of letting go of these blocks in the way, for me to see that my changes clearly, to have discernment in my changes. So that letting go part, then I take myself to the field of possibilities and let Reiki do the work of bringing in those possibilities, elevating my consciousness to where now I have clarity of mind and I can apply it. To me, it's applied spirituality.
Yeah. Now it's all very beautiful. And now I have to ask you this question about it. So, one thing I know we'll talk about in a minute is you have an offer for us where we can listen to a guided journey to have this experience for ourselves. And so that's my question. One, I was going to ask you the time frame, but you already answered that for us. But I was curious about, let's say, if we're doing it for ourselves, so to speak, we could listen to the journey that you have, and it may be a very, you know, who knows, our experience could be anything, but it's very intuitive and us being the observer. But let's say I came to you for a session. Um, is it something that you would guide me into, and then you and I both are observers? Or is it something that you would guide me into, and then I'm just kind of off on my own into that space and experience? Just
Yeah.
curious for people who may want to implement this into their work.
It can be both styles. So that can
Mhm.
be a practitioner preference. They're just two different techniques. So one technique is where you guide a person on a Reiki journey,
Mhm.
which the free offer that I'm providing would be an example of that. I will be guiding the listener on a journey and they will be doing the journey. When people come in as a client, I do the journey for them. So they may engage, they could fall asleep.
Uh,
So they will be entirely in their own inner experience with it.
yeah.
Um, because and both styles can be done and both are appropriate. My personal preference as a client is that it's done for me.
Yeah.
So that's why, as a practitioner, that's the style I typically use. But, we do Reiki journeys for people all the time, like our YouTube channel. We have Reiki journeys for people every week. And
Oh,
so, they're just two different techniques.
mhm.
So both are appropriate. And in the free offering that I'm going to do, I'm actually going to record the journey, but I'm also going to provide the written journey that if you wanted to do it for someone else, you would be able to use the script and do it for someone else too.
That's incredible. So I have to ask you this one last thing about it. If someone, say I came to you and I specifically wanted to have the experience of a Reiki journey, would you check in with me first to see what my point of focus was, what was going on in my life to determine perhaps where you're going to take me in the journey? Or is it
Oh, yeah.
just, okay?
Yeah. I definitely do an interview process with people.
Hmm.
So in my sessions, and I should say right now, I'm referring people for sessions because I'm very my session schedule is booked really far out. But anyway, my personal style is that I start a session with an invocation. Then we have a conversation about what the person came for. Then we go into the Reiki journey. So, and I'm also personally a channeler, so I speak the journey out loud.
Yes.
But also that's another part of the training is to learn how to do the journey, become skilled with what we call the spirit reveal technique, whole other subject. Um, but then also learn how to speak it out loud.
Yeah.
And all of it is a preference of how somebody wants to do it. But it's developing the skills so you have the skill and the tools to understand all these different choices of how you are using the tools and the techniques and the Reiki energy.
Yeah. So that's what I was going to ask you too, if it's spoken out loud, if you're actually speaking to the person. So it does sound like too, for anyone who's interested listening, I mean, one, we can have the experience with the free offer that you have, but we could also train with you
Yeah.
if we want to learn how to do this in a more proficient way. It's
Yeah.
so interesting, really. I mean, there's so many questions I could ask you about this, but I know we have to go soon. But I do want to ask you, just out of curiosity, with you working with this, could you give us some examples of like what people may feel on the other side, or do people feel like they need to journal their experience when they come out of the journey? And what results have they noticed? Have they noticed a change in how they see things? They become more forgiving?
Absolutely. That's also, again, a personal choice. Some
Mhm.
people love to journal, others don't.
Yeah.
And so some people retain, I do a lot of automatic writing,
Mhm.
which I like, but other people don't like. It
Mhm.
takes them out of their concentration. And so some of those questions are preferences for both the practitioner and the client. We almost always have a discussion, but again, I even leave that up to people because sometimes they just want to stay in the space they're in
Right.
and not talk. Um, so that's another part of the skill, is that piece of it, what to share. You're never responsible to share what you're uncomfortable sharing. So
Right.
for anybody that's you're starting to receive these impressions, just know, give yourself the grace to only share what feels right to share or comfortable to share, because you're not required to share. Reiki energy will do that for the client. And that took me a while, and it took me a while to feel confident with my accuracy.
Yeah.
So I needed to be careful with that part of it. But typically I share, and I would say, again, Reiki's doing the work. So whether a person journeys or doesn't journey, there are, benefits, of course, to being able to share what happened in the journey and take it to that next level of depth.
Mhm.
But remember, we're able to share what happened in the journey because Reiki did the work.
Yes.
It wasn't dependent on our ability to observe it. So all practitioners are still doing this same level of work. The practitioner using the journey techniques is observing it and then becoming more skilled at sharing about that. I just see the results of Reiki, again, having been trained in my shamanic work and soul retrieval. And I I love the way Reiki does the work. I like the results of it. I like the style and how it releases the energy and how it reveals a person's authentic and true self. And so the results of that, when that cellular memory wakes up of who they really are, when those skills and abilities come in and their perceptions lift from that perspective, now there's clarity of mind about the changes. Doesn't change that sometimes the changes are uncomfortable and hard,
Right.
but it can take you to a higher level of perception and a higher level of thought, so you can have discernment and clarity of mind with your decision making. You learn how to listen to yourself and hear yourself more deeply, so that in that time of renewal, in that time of moving forward, that next step is more clear. Because sometimes I've seen the next step says, just stand still. You're not stuck. You need to just stand still. And
Right.
there's a difference. Like sometimes we're stuck, and sometimes it's like, no, just stand still and wait. And then sometimes you can see the next step, and it's like you've got one step, you got one foot you can take. And then sometimes you can see the pathway ahead a little ways. Sometimes you can see the pathway a long way ahead. And I'll just finish up with this, because another journey we do, and somewhere on we repeat it, so we'll repeat it probably around the time that this airs, um, is a journey called the Eagle and Mouse Vision journey, where you journey and you merge with the feeling of being an eagle, and you lift way up into the sky and observe your path behind you from eagle vision. You observe it from your vision, and then you move into mouse vision, which is everything that's just right immediately in front of you and
Yes.
right immediately behind you. So those are the kinds of things that it can do very specifically with change and renewal. Where have you come? Where are you going? And what's right now? And how
Yes.
does that play out practically? So that's the whole thing for me, is always this ends up practical,
Right.
functional. Like it gives you the information from different sources of consciousness, your own and external sources, that then give you the ability to have clarity of mind, decision making, and to observe your changes and observe the renewal. What is that next step forward? What's that? Is it a standstill? Go full speed ahead, one step at a time? And what are the tools you have that help you in the actual decision making with all of that every day? And for me, Reiki is my tool. It's the tool I use.
It's an incredible tool, and I know that we're at the end now. I've had you for an hour, but I have to say this. One of the things I love about you and your work is it really does highlight how much you have trusted Reiki as a teacher, as a guide, and really allowed yourself to trust the way that um like you've been guided to allow it to work with who you already are, who you've been. So to have studied so deeply into shamanic practices and then to recognize that partnership and that collaboration with Reiki into that, I just think it's a really beautiful thing. Because again, I think so many of us, you never know what Reiki will highlight for you individually. And a lot of us will go into like doubt and maybe ignore and not clearly observe, like you've been sharing this whole time. So it's interesting that this technique, I think, could be a beautiful way for a lot of practitioners to have clarity in so many different ways and support transformation. But I think a big piece of that too would help with the allowance, like you do so beautifully, of trusting the way that you even feel guided to work in partnership with Reiki. So I just wanted to say that I really admire that about your work.
Thank you. And just also to say that a lot of that is years of practice. So
Yeah.
that getting out of the way part,
Right. Yeah. We hear
but
that a lot.
and then the times it's like, man, I knew it. you know.
hmm
So
Yeah. Everyone listening, think of how many times you say that, right? Oh my God, I
uh,
knew it. I knew
I
it.
knew it.
Well, I thank you so much for everything that you've shared, Colleen. And I know through your podcast, through your classes, through your articles, there's just so many ways that you have supported and continue to support the Reiki community that we all get to evolve and grow within this beautiful system. So thank you for that. And if you could tell us a little bit about the free offer, is it something, are there any recommendations around how we work with what you're sharing?
Well, I'll make it very clear in the
Mhm.
offer. I'll actually explain it and
Okay.
then do the Reiki journey. And it'll be for change and renewal.
Okay.
And pretty much, they're always channeled. So I can think I'm planning what it will
Mhm.
be exactly. Um, so actually the written part will be written after I actually verbally do the the journey, but it will be for change and renewal. And again, people then can listen to the journey, but also I'm going to provide a written version of it that then they would have if they want to share it with somebody else.
Perfect. Okay. And of course, as always, for everyone listening, the links to access not just Colleen's work, your website, and all the information about you, but to access the free offer, all of that will be just below this interview. So I just want to thank you again for sharing with us today and hope to see you again very soon.
Oh, thank you, Yolanda. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate Reiki Rays for doing this for all of us.
Yes, me too. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.